Hey folks, it's Wade from the Shoemakers Academy. We're down here in the workshop, and we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to do. I'm not a cobbler really, and obviously we're about manufacturing shoes and designing shoes, but I've got a pair of shoes from a friend of mine, and they're kind of old, and the rubber outsoles come apart, and we've already glued one of these up already. But we're gonna do the other half, and I thought, well, hey, let's get the camera out and show you guys what to do. So, because the principles for how you bond repair like this are exactly the same as what they do in the production setting. So when you're in a factory, you're gonna want to see the same processes. Okay, so now, granted, usually we're doing something like this a lot more interesting and fun, but principles are the same. So, in this case, this is outsole to upper, right? But what you see here is there's already a score line, right? A glue line. So for your project, you're going to want to mark it with a pencil, right? And you might actually, if you put a lot of work into your upper, you're going to actually want to put a little tape line to keep glue off your upper, and just hold it back from that marking line just a little bit. Just a millimeter or two, because you want to have a little bit of glue space there. So just get it pretty close, and if a little bit of glue gets up there, that's okay. And then you're going to actually, this is smooth leather, so you'd want to buff that before you glue. Okay, so but enough of that. Let's get to the project. Now in this case, we're not gluing the upper. We're actually doing more of a stock fitting operation, and a stock fitting operation is when you connect the outsole to the midsole. So in this case, we have the upper in the way, so we have to be a little bit careful of that. Not too careful, as it's an old pair of shoes and the guy just wants to take them back in the river again. But first things first is surface preparation, and this is the same whether you have a new piece or an old piece, right? So if you got an outsole from me, you're going to want to check it. And these actually they've been a little bit buffed, but what you want to do is you want to check that the surface is clean. Now, when the pieces like this and this are produced, they're coming out of this big giant waffle iron, right? But to help them unstick, they use mold release, and that mold release is great for getting parts out of the mold, but it's not so great when you go to glue it together. In fact, it sucks. So you want to make sure you get that mold release out of there. So in the factory, they'll take these pieces, they'll put them in like a gigantic washing machine, but you should still do that for your own parts, right? So when I'm gluing up, whether it's a new part or not, go take it to the sink and just clean it with soap and water. Now in this case, we actually can't do that with this because we got an upper attached to it. This piece, pretty well wiped it down, and you could there's a couple of different things you could use to clean it. I have acetone in the workshop. You could use that. I also have some thinner, and this is Barge's all-purpose cement thinner, and you can use a little bit of this too. So I'm gonna pour some of this on here. It's not the perfect material for this, but it should work. Okay, so I'm gonna actually use that as my reservoir, and I'm gonna go ahead and work on the midsole. Now, on the midsole, the key thing here is your bonding margin, right? Your sidewall bonding margin. You want to make sure this area is clean as can be, because this is where it's going to peel, right? This is where your exposed edge, and actually this part up here where the upper wraps onto the toe here, we got to make sure that this is nice and clean. So we're just going to quickly rub this down. Now in the shoe factory, what you'll see is they'll be doing a priming operation, and on the assembly line. So, or even you'll see it on the stock fitting line too. So the priming operation is where they take this same kind of thinner and they'll mix it with glue, and they will prime the surface. And priming just is a really thin glue, right? Almost water thickness, or a little bit thicker, and they want that to be able to penetrate the surface, right? Because what we're going for here is a chemical bond, right? You just imagine two flat surfaces, and the glue facilitates the molecules literally holding themselves together. Now, The other part is a mechanical bond. A mechanical bond is where the glue penetrates the surface of the material, right? This has lots of crooks and crannies because it's already been glued and roughed once. Same thing with this. They penetrate those crooks and crannies, and then the glue glues to itself, because we're doing contact cement. What that means is that you have to glue both surfaces, right? Because the glue penetrates on the rubber side, it penetrates on the EVA side, and then you let it dry, and then you press it together, and it's the glue gluing to itself. Now, if you have a shoe, and this is important when you're doing quality and you're looking at returns, you have to be able to read a glue bond, and we'll do a more in-depth presentation on that. But what you're looking at when you see a broken bond is you want to see, did the glue separate from the substrate, right? Did the glue separate from the rubber? Or did the glue separate from the EVA? Or did the glue separate from itself? So how would you look at that? Well, if you looked at this piece of rubber and you said there was no glue on the surface, all the glue was on the EVA side, then you say, the surface preparation of this rubber was not good enough. Or the other way around, which is if you looked at the EVA and all the glue was stuck on the outsole part, you'd say, the surface preparation on the EVA side wasn't good enough. Now, sometimes you'll see there's a little bit of glue on both, which might have meant that either the glue was kicked off or something, and it's a failure of the glue bond to itself. So you want to look at those things, because it's a little bit of detective work, because usually it's it could be one shift where they used the wrong primer on the rubber parts, or they didn't clean the batch of rubber parts well enough, right? So you see that there's an issue there. So reading that bond is pretty important to quality control. Of course, the problem is you only see that after the fact when the shoe's toast, right? Okay, so we're just going to go ahead, and I really want to make sure to clean up into this toe cap. Now, okay, here's the other thing too. So we're using a last that we have in house. It's not the original last for the shoe. When you want to get a strong bond, it's critically important that you have a last, particularly when you're doing something like this. You want to have the upper on this so tight so you can get good back pressure. Otherwise, because this is contact cement, if you just touch the surfaces together, you'll get a bond. But if you squeeze them together, you're going to get an even better bond. So it is really important that you have a last. So I've seen a lot of DIY projects where the person's like, well, I made the upper, and I stuffed it full of newspaper, and I went to glue it together, and it didn't stay. And I'm like, no surprise. You got to have some back pressure. Okay, so now we've got these parts clean, and I'm going to set that aside so I don't have to breathe that too much. Really make sure your shop is well ventilated when you do this. Okay, now we're gonna hit a little bit of heat. Make sure that's nice and dry. And actually, the other thing that heat does is that it makes the glue dry a little faster when we get it on. Okay, so I've got the lasting jack mounted to the table here, and I've got some extra pins, and I've just drilled a 1/2-inch hole, and that way I can actually just mount the piece right here on the work surface. It makes it easier to work on and easier for you to see what's going on. So we'll just hit this with a little heat, make sure we're all dry here. Okay, not too much, because you don't want to reactivate the foam. Now, I sort of learned a lesson when I did the first pair of this shoe. Man, I didn't clean the upper well enough. I'm getting a little dirt here. Okay. Thing I learned the first time I did this shoe is that this toe cap is a real pain, so I really want to do this part first. Okay, and okay. In the shoe factory, they're not going to have a can of cement like this. They're going to actually have like 5 or 10 gallon cans or whatever, or liter cans, and they're going to dump out the glue, but then they're going to catalyze it, right? So their glue, it's only good for an hour or two, and versus this glue is good for months. And that catalyzed glue just really makes a nice strong bond. But this stuff, it works well if you just careful with your surface prep, and put enough on it. So in the shoe factory, you'll see that the parts get a couple layers of primer, right, which is just thinned glue, and then they'll get a couple layers of the actual contact cement. And in between, they'll go through an oven. If you've seen our other presentation where we tour you through a factory, in our basics course or for our shoe factory course, you get a good look at the assembly process, and you see that they are actually running the shoes down the conveyor belt, right? And they've got different ovens, right? And we say oven, but really it's more like 100 degrees. Just enough to evaporate the solvent, or should be water. Now, I wish this is water-based glue because it wouldn't stink so bad. The only upside of that is that it evaporates quicker, but the downside again is that I'm breathing it. Now, when you walk into a shoe factory, you'll know whether it's water-based or solvent-based right away, because you'll end up with a headache like instantly. Because that solvent-based glue, it makes a nice strong bond, but boy oh boy, it smells terrible. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we get a nice solid coat, and as I said, like when we were cleaning this, I really want to make sure that we get a nice coat of glue along the edge where the rubber and the outsole wrap up vertical and meet each other. And because this is an old pair of shoes, I'm going a little bit quick, and you know, if this was my brand new Air Jordan upper that I just spent 3 weeks making, I would be a little bit more careful. But in this case, because this is a 10 or 15-year-old pair of shoes already or something, that it doesn't bother me to get glue up onto the edge. And it's more important, these things don't have to look great. These just have to hold together so that we can get these back in the river, and not have to throw them away, which would kind of stink, even though they're kind of ugly, weird shoes. But no, they're effective. These are practical shoes. Hate to throw them away. Okay, so we've got one coat of glue on here, and I'm putting it on thick. If you've got a little thinner glue, just make sure you get a nice even coat. Works good. And yeah, we could probably do to add a little thinner to this, to make the glue a little bit thinner. Okay, now I'm gonna just put this up on the lasting post out of the way, and you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it a quick heat up, just so that it can start drying off while we work on the rubber component. Okay, so we'll just let that go. And I'm actually going to hit the rubber with a little bit of heat so we can speed things up. You know, you don't have to worry, you know, for you, I would say, don't worry about it. Just let it ventilate and let it dry. But, you know, you've got all the time in the world. Don't feel rushed. Okay, so this sidewall here, this is called the bonding margin, right? The side part here, and it's a little bit raised, and that's what's going to make this thing really stick together well. When you're designing an outsole, midsole, you want to be careful. And I've, you know, as a young designer, I made this mistake where you're tempted to let the rubber sidewall come down really low, right? So you go from having a vertical bond or horizontal bond to having a really short vertical bond, right? You got to be careful because that is so easy to peel, right? If it's just a flat bond, like from a die cut shoe, that's nice and strong, and a 8mm vertical bond wall, that's great. But when you get down to 2 or 3, it's so easy to peel that edge off. So in this shoe, you can see they've got a nice high sidewall there that really is going to hold together. And I'm just going to make sure I get lots of glue up to that edge. Try to keep it evenly. We can go here and then up into this toe cap. I'm going to have to get a lot up in there because I've got to make sure that we get up into the top, on that top surface, because that edge is probably, I can't remember where he said this broke away. I think it's started on the heel, but you know, at that point the glue pretty much let go. I mean, these things were pretty old, and you know, you got to be careful if you leave stuff like this in a car, or when it gets nice and hot, that the midsole can start to react a little bit and can expand, and the glue bond can let go. So none of these things are permanent, but if you take care of your shoes and don't let them overheat, I mean, hey, these things lasted a good long time. These folks at Keen, they know how to make a decent pair of shoes. They, in fact, actually own their own factories. They're pretty rare that way. I mean, the factories they do have a factory in the U.S., but I think they have a factory in China and Indonesia and Vietnam. So they're unique in that respect, that they actually own their own factories, even though they're overseas. And I actually ran into the owner of the outfit. Literally ran into him because a friend of mine invited me to go to their Chinese New Year party, and the gentleman's name is Rory First, and I was just there with with one of the material suppliers, just kind of glomming on, and I bumped into him at the salad bar. It was kind of funny. I was like, yeah, I just bumped into Rory First, but yeah, literally bumped into him. Yeah, thanks for that. It was a nice holiday party for those guys. Okay, yeah. So when you go to China, sometimes you run into strange things. Just go with it. Okay, you know what? Oh, let's make sure we get. I really missed that spot. Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, so we've got one layer of glue on this, and but really, we're gonna do two layers. So I'm gonna quickly give these both a little dose of heat here. Not too much. We don't want to overcook things, because if you overcook that EVA, it refoams, and then that's a great way to destroy it. So we'll get that a little bit of heat, and we're going to put another layer of glue on there in a second. But while that's going, I want to show you something. Let's put the lid on that so we're not breathing there. I want to show you. We have a little chapter on glue, actually. So we'll go over here to the. I've got a shop copy here of the Shoe Material Design Guide. Let's haul that over here. And okay. Now here's what we're gonna do here. Okay. Let's not ruin that. So let's just put that down here. Okay. All right. So this is a Shoe Material Design Guide for those of you that maybe are not familiar with it, but this book actually talks about all different types of shoe materials, right? So there's 28 chapters, and we talk about leather, textile, synthetic, stitching, shoelaces, hardware, logo applications, foam, midsole, outsole, waterproof, footbeds, webbing, plastic parts, packaging, all that stuff, how to maintain a material library, yeah, all that stuff. But actually, chapter 7 is about shoe glue. So let's go over to chapter 7. That's page 45 over here. And what this chapter we talk about, this is polyurethane contact cement, and this is whether it's water-based or solvent-based, this is like liquid gold. This is what all shoes are made of, whether vulcanized or cold cement. Polyurethane contact cement is what they're all made out of. So, and then the other thing is PVA, polyvinyl acetate glue. That's like Elmer's, like white glue, right? And then there's hot melt glue, which is exactly, just like hot melt glue, like stick, right, that you have from a craft store, right? But it's actually sprayed, and the hot melt glue is pretty nice because you can put a nice thin layer, and it's not a solid coat, and it's a little bit breathable, and when you put the shoe through the oven, that glue gets soft, and it helps make a really nice shape of the shoes. Anyways, that's my story on hot glue. So, but what I want to show you here is that, oh yeah, here's the assembly process. So here she's putting the cement on, and you see that the other, because it's a double bond, right? There's the lasting board and the outsole, and then there's the upper. Now, when you look at a regular shoe, so many of the components are glued together. Not just the midsole and the outsole, but if you look at the footbed and the fabric that's on the footbed, right? Those two layers have to be glued together. The tongue face fabric to the tongue foam has to be glued together. The lining and the lining foam have to be glued together. The heel counter has to be glued into the shoe. So all these components are either laminated or glued together somehow. So is it possible to eliminate glue from shoes? Well, maybe. I mean, we do our best, but that also what helps hold it together so it doesn't wrinkle and fall apart. So it's inevitable that you have a lot of glue. Now, so that's chapter 7 on glue. What I want to show you too is sort of the back half of this book, chapter 27, and this is the part that was a lot of fun for me. We'd take a shoe and we'd cut it open and we show you all the different components that are inside each of the shoes. So this way, you know, as far as you're trying to learn like what goes into the Stan Smith, well, here it is. This is what it looks like inside a Stan Smith. What does a track spike look like? What does that crazy Nike airbag thing look like? How about a Kobe shoe? How about the Air Max 90? You know, how about a trail running shoe? How about a moccasin? So we cover about 35 different shoe types. There's ballerinas and women's shoes and all the other kind of shoes in here, hiking boots, cowboy boots. So at least you can see, hey, we cut them open and we call out what these components are, so you can start to make your own spec sheets. Okay, that's the shoe material design guide. Thank you for sponsoring this video. All right, next. Okay. So the key thing here is we want this glue to be dry. So we're gonna just start to fingertip and see. It's a little bit sticky. Okay, so we're getting there. So what I'm gonna do is, we're gonna give it a little bit more heat, and then we're actually gonna have to do another coat of glue, because I really want these shoes to stick together. Because I don't want to do this again. And in the shoe factory, you'll see that they'll do 2 or 3 layers of glue. So we did that first or second. So we're gonna go back and we're gonna put some more glue on this. Now this glue, like I said, is pretty dry already. So we're gonna go ahead and we can set that back down on the table. Yeah, I don't want to do that too much. Okay, let's not do that. We'll set it back there. But we're gonna work on the. I want to make sure that we get the toe cap glued up good. Work our way around here. Gotta have 2 layers at least. Now the shoe factory, they'll do 3, and that just make sure they get a nice even coat. This glue is a little bit thick. This can, maybe it's due to either thin it or replace it. Okay, now that we got the toe cap done, let's work on the rest of it here. Okay, so again, really want to focus on getting our glue on those nice side walls, because that's what's going to stop this thing from too much glue there. Careful. Again, this is the upper of your new shoe. I would tape it off to make sure that you don't screw up all your handiwork. But let's just go ahead and make sure we get enough on this heel, because I think this is where this thing will let go in the first place. Make sure we get all that glued up good. Okay, now we got to start. I mean, I actually dry fit these together, and this is the second one of these I've done. We already did the other half, but you got to be thinking about how you're going to clamp this thing together. What procedure are you going to use? Do you have a clamping device? If you're making a lot of shoes, then maybe a desktop, a bench top clamp. Some people use some vacuum setup, sort of vacuum bag the whole thing to get it to hold together. This shoe, because I know it all fits together, I'm actually just going to use tape, and it's not very sophisticated, but because these parts are originally all fit together and have been fit together for about the last 20 years or 10 years or however these are, I know, even though we don't have the right last to provide perfect back pressure, it's pretty good for your home projects. There's some ones where you just glue the leather out of the sidewall and it works because you can get at it from the inside, but I don't recommend trying to glue without a last. It just you don't get the pressure you need to really get a good strong bond. So okay, we're good enough there. We're gonna go ahead and get another big layer of glue on here. Just make sure that we get everything coated nice. Focus on those sidewalls, because that's where this thing's going to let go. And that heel. Double check that we get that. Okay. Whew. Keep your shop ventilated, folks. This stuff stinks. You know, the factory, they have pretty sophisticated air handling. In the old days, I don't know if I mentioned this before, in the old days, you'd walk in and you'd get a big headache. When old days, I mean like 15 years ago. You'd get a big old headache, and you know, somehow after half an hour, 2 hours, you'd be like, I don't smell the glue anymore. And yeah, it's because it's pretty much saturated your brain. But nowadays, when you walk in, you shouldn't smell much glue, because number one, mostly they're using water-based. Now, there's some things that you want to use solvent-based glue on. You know, is solvent-based glue stronger? Can be. So there's some, you know, if this is some technical thing where it's a safety issue, then they're gonna not want to use water-based. But generally, the big brands all demand water-based for everything, and it's pretty much, they pretty much got it now where there's no difference. I mean, what you end up having to do is maybe turn up the heat a little bit on the conveyor lines and slow it down. And that's why the factories kind of didn't really like it. I mean, of course, they'll do what the customers tell them to do, but they weren't really that excited to use water-based, because it was slow, right? But then again, by the time you walk in and you say, hey, you know, we want better air handling, we want safer conditions for the workers, and we, you know, if you're the customer and you demand it, and you're a big enough customer, then guess what? You'll get what you want. Okay, now I wouldn't call this a pro tip, but you see our glue can here is pretty well slaughtered with glue. So I'm gonna go ahead, and while we're waiting for that to glue, or for that glue to dry, I'm gonna get solvent back on this thing, and I'm gonna do a little bit of maintenance on this glue tub, because if we don't clean this off when we go to do the next shoe, we're gonna have a real problem. So, you know, a lot of people, you would just take this glue and just dump it out into a disposable can or whatever, or better yet, don't use the brush that comes with it. Use your own brush and pour it out, and that way your can doesn't get sloppy. But take some time and use a little bit of the thinner and get your glue can cleaned up. I mean, you don't think about it until the next time you go, and you're like, how come this thing's not opening, right? So, and we'll just do a little work on the lid here, and we'll save ourselves the trouble. Now, I wouldn't generally take your time with this, but as we're waiting for the glue to dry, it's okay too. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. It still looks a little bit of a train wreck, but then when we come back next time, this will be good. Now, okay. Now, we're not dealing with any more wet glue here, so we can pull these gloves off. All right, get that out of there. Now, let's do a little bit more heat here, and hopefully we can get to stock fitting this back together. Okay. Okay, so, just the fingertip test, right? If there's no glue coming off, right, then you're good. So we're just gonna check these pieces. Okay, it's pretty dry. All right, that's good. Now, this shoe is a little bit more complicated because we have this big toe cap. And this is contact cement, so when these surfaces touch, they're not sliding, right? And people think, oh, you just butter it up with glue and slide the pieces together. Well, it doesn't work that way, because once you put that contact cement together, it does not want to move. So you want to be careful to land square, right? You know, if you're doing a toe cap, start in the front, work your way back, or you don't just want to try to stick it all together at once. You're gonna want to give yourself a little leeway. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna grab whatever's handy here, and I just happen to have a hammer, and I'm gonna set this right here. And what this is gonna do, this is gonna keep the heel from landing, right, when we go to push this together, because I want to get this toe cap stuck in there, right? So you want to do a little choreography, right? Because we want to, number one, we want to get that toe cap landed, and then we want to work our way into all these sidewalls before we let the heel drop, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put that hammer there just so the heel doesn't land. And I'm going to peel this back, and I'm going to do my best to stick this in here quick, right? And I'm going to actually take this on the table here. I'm going to hold this back, right? And I don't want that to stick, right? And I'm going to pound this on the table because I want that toe cap to get down. Now, I'm going to start working my way here. Now, I'm going to keep the heel off, and I'm just going to work the side here, and we're just going to, this stuff, it's not wet, so don't worry about it dripping, right? You just want to make sure that you get landed, right? Get that sidewall on, and get that sidewall in, and just work your way around, and we get out of the heel. Okay, good. Now we're going to just bang that thing on the table, and we're going to take a look at the toe up here. And this is where this last, because this is not the right, it's not the production last, right? So we want to just give ourselves a little extra pressure here, and we're going to just check all the way around. Now in the factory sometimes you'll see them, this is where this thing let go was the heel, so we really want to be careful about that. You'll see them take a popsicle stick and stick it and pull this back, right? And then reset it to make sure they get all the way up to the edge. So when I look around this piece here, I see that we're looking pretty good as far as we're landed all the way around. So we're going to use the high-tech method here to hold this together. And I'm going to start here, and this is where I know this last and also won't fit together perfectly. Because I'm going to start here. I'm going to just squeeze it together, and I'm going to wrap the tape around. And granted, if you had a press or a vacuum rig or something, but hey, this works okay too. And I've, this, it's down pretty well. Otherwise, you could take a clamp and you could clamp, but we're actually not in bad shape here. And again, this is a stock fitting operation because we're getting the outsole and midsole to fit together, not necessarily the upper to sit down. So, except right here, this is our tricky spot. So, and yeah, am I gonna waste a bunch of tape on this? Yeah, I guess so. But you know what? If you had to go out and buy a new pair of this shoe, I think it'd be like $120 nowadays, or maybe more. So let's just see what we can do here. If we can get another. I know summer's over already, but let's just see what we can do here. We're just going to squeeze it together, get that tape down. And we're just going to go around it. Just get enough pressure here. And it looks like this gap is pretty well closed. So I'm using painter's tape because it peels off really easily. And we're counting on the tension of the tape and the length of it to hold on. Because we don't want to gum up the upper with a bunch of sticky stuff. So this kind of painter's tape actually, it works pretty well for that. Okay, now I really want to go around the heel. Make sure that we get this. Let me just put this on the stand here. And, this last jack is pretty handy for that. And I can just get around the heel. So now this glue, it's contact cement, and you know, in the shoe factory they'll put it through a heat oven and a chilling oven, and because they're in a hurry. But the glue itself, you know, it's best bond. You know, if you say, oh, I want to get a new shoe and I'm going to take it right off the assembly line and start wearing it, you don't actually want to do that. You do actually want to give the you do want to give the shoe that bond some time to really fully catalyze and finish. So, you know, like these, like, hey, we're in no hurry, right? It's Sunday morning. You know, if I get these shoes back to him by Wednesday, he'll be in time for next weekend if it's not raining. So we're gonna go around and you know, it's pretty close, but we'll just give it a little pressure here. You know, the other thing we could do is once we got these things all taped up like this, it's not that great looking prospect, but okay, is just put these on the workbench and find a cinder block and just put some weight on it, right? And just put some weight. Well, folks, that's it. I mean, like I said, you know, this is kind of a, you know, not exactly, you know, sort of what a production situation looks like, but you'll see the same process. And I talked about how to read a glue bond, right? Did I talk about that? When you want to check the bond on both sides, hopefully we'll do a whole other video on that. You know, what am I using in the workshop? I'm using Barge cement, right? So this is Barge Super Stick. There's a couple others. You can get cans of this on Amazon. This happens to be Barge thinner too. But you know, that's it. And you're going to see that, like I said, in the factory, you'll see the same technique, right? You're going to see primer, and then a couple layers of cement. And you'll see the pressing process. You'll see the cooling process. And then they'll put them right in the box. For me, I'm just going to leave them here. And we'll peel the tape off in a couple of days. And hey, don't be in any big hurry. Be careful of your upper. Now, again, I went fast, and I got a little extra glue, you know, on the edge there. But we're not trying to make these beautiful. We're just trying to get them down the road. For your project, you know, really be careful. Tape up the upper. You know, mark your line where your outsole is going to be. Tape it up nice and get more tape on the upper, whatever. Just get it protected. No point in messing it up now, right? You put all that work into it, and then just give it some time. You don't feel you're in a hurry to peel it apart. All right, folks, that's it. I'm glad I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's just a lot of me talking in the workshop, but hey, you know, we're really excited. We just got to 2,000 subscribers. So if you enjoy this video at all, please like and subscribe and send it to a friend. And hey, listen, if you have any other questions about what we're doing here, whether it's about the books or the courses or the shoe supplies or any of that other stuff, feel free to you know, my email address is up in the corner of the website at shoemakersacademy.com, or just put your question in the comments. I do read every comment. I try to answer as many as I can. And so that's it, folks. I appreciate it. Thanks for spending time with us in the workshop.